Hi, this is Greg. Welcome to our channel. Today I want to offer you some excerpts from a webinar I gave a few years ago. In part one of this webinar series, I want to discuss the purpose of a mission statement, the first of the 12 principles of personal leadership, which is visionary goals, and the benefits of using some positive affirmations. If you haven't seen our videos on creating your own personal mission statement, I encourage you to watch our two videos entitled Why Most Goals Fail and How to Create Your Own Personal Mission Statement. I will put the links to them below in the discussion area. This is part one of the webinar series. Enjoy.
Personal leadership is when you choose to seize control of your own life and your own path, knowing that a default mission statement exists in our society and in our culture, and that takes over if you do nothing. Everyone has a mission statement in life. The choice is we either create our own, and we go down our own path by developing and following our own mission statement, or we just get absorbed into the default mission statement that exists in our society and in our culture. And we'll talk about what that is in just a few minutes. So personal leadership is where you create a game plan for your life. You build your own mission statement that is unique. It's different than anyone else's because it reflects what and who you are. And then you develop active goals around that mission statement to help you to achieve that mission statement. You know, I've started a number of businesses, and when I go to a bank and open an account and talk about money, one of the first things they ask me is, what is your mission statement? What is it about your company, Greg, that is going to make you unique and different and successful compared to all of your competitors out there? So if that's one of the first questions that I'm often asked when I begin talking to someone about financing or establishing a business, and they usually want a business plan along with that, I think it's only fair that we talk about our own lives and the fact that we need a personal mission statement. A personal mission statement helps us to do two things. It helps us to focus on what our moral and ethical values are. They become a compass to us to make sure that we stay on the direction, on the mission that we wrote, that we claimed ourselves was important to us, that we wanted to live by. And the second thing it does is it helps us to accept accountability and responsibility. One of the difficulties of the default mission statement that exists in our culture today is that of victimization. Our culture wants you to believe that every problem and every issue you have is always someone else's fault. It's either your parents' fault, your employer's fault, your teacher's fault, your religion's fault. It's always someone else's fault. And the beautiful thing about personal leadership is you realize that you get the opportunity to choose and make decisions for yourself. Stephen Covey used an analogy. He called it an inside-out leadership approach. And that is an approach that begins with personal accountability, self-mastery, that is personal development, and emotional intelligence, learning how to handle things in a mature, adult way rather than flying off the handle, rather than saying and doing things that are harmful to ourselves and others. And he says, and I'll quote in his book, The 7 Habits, private victories precede public victories. You can't invert that process any more than you can harvest a crop before you plant it. It's inside out. And that's what leadership is. Effective leadership that lasts, that's more than just a cheap facade, is something that develops on the inside and then is reflected on the outside. And that's the kind of leadership that can have an impact on other people. Mahatma Gandhi was an interesting man. He admitted that he was exceedingly homely, and he would often kid about the way that he looked. And if you think about it, he took a huge nation and gained its independence from the British Empire, and he didn't have an army. He did it through political, nonviolent means, without shedding blood, without needing an army, without needing literally to have violent revolution. He did it through the leadership that he demonstrated in his own life. He said a couple of things that I want to highlight today. One of the things he said is, you must be the change you want to see in the world. So if there's something in the world that needs change, if there's something that needs to be improved, we need to be the first ones to make that change and reflect the kind of leadership that we want to see in our businesses and in our families and in our communities. Another thing he said is, quote, as human beings, our greatness lies not so much in being able to remake the world, that is the myth of the atomic age, as in being able to remake ourselves. So again, personal leadership is about choosing to make our own decisions in life. It's about choosing our own path and not allowing other people to decide for us what our lives should be and what we should be doing with our lives. It provides balance in life. It helps us to avoid excesses and obsessions. And that's oftentimes how people begin to cope with life. If they don't have a personal mission statement to cope with the problems and stresses of life, they acquire obsessions, they acquire addictions, and they start having excesses in their lives that harm them and those that they love. Personal leadership helps us to avoid the victimization myth because we realize that we can take responsibility for our own lives. It also gives us a priority order in life. And your priority order may be different than mine, but it should include segments of family and work and play and community and other things that comprise part of our life. So what personal leadership does is that you choose what your priorities are in your life, whether it's family or whether it's career or whether it's involvement in the community, but you learn to make that choice. So the first thing we'll be discussing here is principle number 1 that's in the book that all of you should have received a copy of, either a hard copy or the PDF file, Making Life's Puzzle Pieces Fit. So here's principle number 1 we'll cover briefly, and that is visionary goals. An unwritten goal is only a dream, and a goal without a vision is a fantasy. And it's amazing that I talk to a lot of young people, and I do group discussions with young people, and I'll say, how many of you have goals? And they raise their hands. I say, well, great. Well, tell me about your goal. And when they describe their goal, it's like, well, to be a millionaire or to be a rock star or whatever. And those aren't, they didn't create a goal. That's a dream they have in their heads. They haven't created a goal to achieve those things. They're dreaming. So a goal is important because we write it down. It becomes a commitment to us. It becomes our constitution in which we put into writing the things that are important to us and how we're going to take that journey and how we're going to get there. We say visionary goals because vision is a mental picture that prods and motivates us. It's an inspirational snapshot of a desired future that we want to achieve. It may be an advanced degree. It may be a career move. It may be a relocating to a warm part of the country. Whatever it may be, that vision is so important because that's what gives us the inspiration and motivation to continue working on that goal, even when things go wrong and even when things aren't progressing like we wish that they would. 2 things to understand about goals, and we'll be talking about goals in a minute in a little more detail when we look at a handout, but there are long-term goals and there are short-term goals. All of these goals should tie into our personal mission statement and make that happen. All of our goals should be part of fulfilling our personal mission statement. Long-term goals take many years and great effort to achieve. It may take 5 years, 7 years, 20 years to achieve a long-term goal. Short-term goals are the smaller targets or the little stepping stones that we achieve on our way to make it to that long-term goal that we established. They make our large goals realistic and provide satisfaction along the journey. And every time you achieve a short-term goal, you cross one of those stepping stones on the way to something that is very, very important to you. It gives you a sense of satisfaction. You say, look, I can do this. It gives you a sense of feeling joy and achievement that you're on the journey that you want to be on and that you have crossed another milestone on your way to achieve your long-term goals. Where do most people go wrong with goal setting? Wow, there are a lot of ways people go wrong. The majority of people, frankly, don't even establish goals. What they call goals really are just dreams and ideas that they have in their head. Many people create goals that are far too large. And if you create a goal that is far too large and you don't break it down in the digestible steps, then you're going to soon feel overwhelmed. You're going to say, that's way out of my reach. I can't do that. And you're going to become discouraged and you're going to quit. There's an old saying, how do you eat an elephant? Does anyone know how you eat an elephant?
One bite at a time.
One bite at a time. That's exactly right. And that is also true of goal setting. So many people, they just create these huge, gargantuan goals, something they want to achieve, and then they look at it and they meditate on it a few days later and they say, oh, I don't even know where to get started. I can't do this. This is beyond me. Another reason that people go wrong with goal setting is they don't write down their goals. They remain vague and nebulous dreams. And again, the reason we write down our goals, when you write something down, it takes on special, deeper meaning to you. When I bought a home, I had to sign a contract. That made it kind of permanent. That made it a serious commitment that I had particular payments to make every month to achieve the goal of home ownership. So it's very important that we write down our goals, and that's why we're going to be going through that process in this program. People often have goals that are contradictory and compete with one another. And I knew a man who, one of his goals was he wanted to save for retirement. His goal was, quote, as much as I can for retirement. And then he went out and bought a $70,000 BMW. Well, so oftentimes we have goals that actually contradict and compete with one another, and that's why many people don't achieve their goals. Most people establish a few goals, usually unwritten, that typically have no central purpose. Their goals are usually acquired because they want something and not according to a plan. Their goal, I want to be a millionaire, or I want to live in Florida, or I want to do this. And they have no real plan to do that. And therefore, their ideas are fragmented and they're disorganized. And those usually are goals that are seldom going to be achieved. And then people go wrong with goal setting is that they don't set SMART goals. And this is a SMART goal. A SMART goal, using the word SMART, is specific, meaning who, what, when, where, and why. Is this goal important to me? And that usually takes 2 or 3 sentences, maybe up to a paragraph, to specify why that goal is important to us. It's measurable, meaning we set targets and we measure the success. You don't know if you're winning or losing unless you keep score. So a SMART goal has to be measurable. Another thing about a SMART goal is it has to be attainable. I talked a minute ago about having a goal so big that it's beyond your reach and that it actually discourages you. It devours your incentive instead of firing you up to achieve something. So a SMART goal plans each step with smaller achievable goals. A SMART goal is realistic, meaning that you answer in your heart of hearts that you were both willing and able to work at this goal, because it's not going to happen if you're not willing and able to work at it. And then the T for SMART is tangible. It cannot be nebulous. You be able to experience it with one of your senses. It's a goal that you should either be able to taste, touch, smell, see, or hear it. If it isn't tangible, again, you will not be able to maintain the motivation when times get tough in order to achieve that goal and reach your dreams. Let's take a quick look at the handout that I gave you regarding your goal planning sheet. Now, I'm not going to ask you to complete this today, but I want you to think about it. What we are going to talk about in a little bit is your personal mission statement, because that actually needs to come before you start creating your goals. But if you take a look at the handout that I gave you on your goal planning sheet, what I attempt to do there is give you the ability to write down as much as you can in order to achieve any goal that you may have in life. You start out by looking at page 1, and it asks you to literally take a look at your goal, specific, measurable, attainable, realistic. If you look at the sample, it's health related. This is one that someone did a number of weeks back. Their goal was in 8 weeks establish a habit of walking at least 30 minutes per day, 5 days a week. So you see, it's a goal. It's a SMART goal, and it's succinct, and it basically says what their goal was. Then the next section is you have to write down the benefits from achieving this goal or the loss to be avoided from achieving this goal. And again, this is to motivate us, to inspire us, to make us clarify in our minds, is this goal really important to me? And in this case, the individual said it's good because it'll give them more energy, it'll build better health, it'll increase their longevity, it'll increase their productivity. They realized they needed to get on an exercise routine. And a loss would be a continual loss of energy, increased illnesses, and lost productivity in a shorter lifespan. Then you'll notice on the next page, page 2, when you're formulating your goal, you'd be honest enough to realize what are the possible obstacles that are going to stop me from achieving this goal. And in this case, this individual wrote down procrastination, excuses, and time management. They were just very poor at time management. And you'll also notice that on the opposite side, you write down possible solutions to those obstacles that you know are going to come up. Most of us know what the obstacles are because we make resolutions and we make goals. We've made goals in the past and we haven't achieved them. So we know what we are like and we know our weaknesses and we know the kind of things that we do that inhibit us from achieving our goals. So what this does is this helps you to plan it out. And as you see, you're not writing paragraphs, but you're succinctly and clearly giving yourself some motivation, some inspiration. You're being candid with yourself. When you go to page 3, you'll see that this breaks down that goal in the sample that the person had about walking 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week. You'll see that they broke it down, in this case, into 7 steps. I believe that if I recall correctly, it might have been like 7 weekly steps. And rather than just looking at the ultimate goal and becoming discouraged because they weren't used to walking, they broke it down into stepping stones, into bite-sized, achievable mini goals. And every week when I would ask this person, they were absolutely excited that they crossed that little stepping stone and that they achieved it, that they were able to do it one step at a time. And again, when we do that, that actually encourages us and motivates us. And then another interesting thing is who needs to know about this goal. You may have noticed a couple of times I talked about accountability already. In this case, this individual wanted his wife to know it. He wanted a mentor that he had named Tony to know it. And he wanted Tony to call him every week and say, how are you doing on your walking program? And a method of tracking the progress, this individual created a little daily tracking chart and had a little check mark every time they did the walk that day and met that goal. And then a very important question, does this goal support my values? And the answer has to be yes. Is it worth the time, effort, and money to reach this goal? And again, the answer has to be yes. If you've gone this far and the answer is no, you probably shouldn't establish it as a goal because you're not going to have the will, the determination to complete it. And then on page 4 is another very important part that we'll talk about in an upcoming program, and that is having positive affirmations. So positive affirmation is a declaration we make to ourselves of something we expect to become true or that we desire to live by. What a positive affirmation does is it builds needed internal confidence and determination and a positive expectancy. We live in a very negative world. We live in a world that basically tells us we can't do things, that because of our sex, because of our gender, because of our color of our skin, because of our ethnic backgrounds, for a million reasons, we live in a culture that says you can't, you can't, you can't, you can't. And what a positive affirmation does is it builds that internal confidence and expectancy because you truly can. And an example of one for someone, for example, on the job would be, I am good at my job. I believe in my ability to achieve my goals. And the important thing about a positive affirmation is that you compose it yourself. It has to have special meaning to you. It has to come from your heart. Always use the first person pronoun I when you have a positive affirmation because it's your affirmation. You can't make an affirmation for anyone else. It works best in the present tense. I am, meaning this is happening right now because it's visionary. You may not be there yet, but write it in the present tense. I am doing this, and state it positively. Rather than saying, I will not, which is a negative affirmation, say, I can do this. And repeat it aloud to yourself in the morning while getting ready for the day, while you're dressing in the bathroom, or if driving to work in your car and you're all alone. My personal affirmation is inside of my little wallet, my day timer. For a while, I had it on the dashboard of my car. And as I would head out in the morning, I would read aloud to myself a number of times my personal affirmation. And over time, it changes. As you grow and change, your personal affirmations will change too, depending on what you're trying to focus on. So a positive affirmation is visionary thinking. Remember, it's visionary goals is principle number one. You picture the person you want to be in your mind. Other forms of visualization include using physical objects to remind you of why that goal is important. So it can be a picture of your goal. It can be a sample of your goal that you have in the corner of your desk. It can be displayed physically somewhere. You can hang it on your wall if you want to. But it reminds you of why that goal is important, and it gives you that snapshot of a desired future that you want to have in your life. So that is very, very important.
If the information you heard today was helpful, go ahead and hit the subscribe button, and please give us a like. If you ring the bell, you'll be notified of new videos that I post. We do appreciate your support and your comments. This is Greg Thomas on behalf of Leadership Excellence Limited, reminding you that it was Steve Jobs who wrote, "Being the richest man in the cemetery doesn't matter to me. Going to bed at night and saying, 'We've done something wonderful,' that's what matters to me." See you next time.